I remembered the day she chose me. In my previous life, I stood beneath the orphanage's crumbling gate when the Liu family arrived. They told her to pick a younger brother. She looked straight at me. That girl, Janet, smiled softly and reached out her hand. I followed her home without hesitation. We grew up side by side. We fell in love. In time, I became her husband. We loved each other until we were old, or at least, I thought we did. Until the end, when she held my dying hand and whispered, "If only I had saved Michael instead." Then everything went black. When I opened my eyes again, I was back inside that suffocating orphanage, 12 years old, the same peeling walls, the same damp ceiling, the same bitter air in my lungs. I stumbled to the mirror. My reflection stunned me. The face I hadn't seen in decades stared back, youthful, unscarred. I touched the side of my jaw, the spot where a scar once lived, the scar I got protecting Janet. It was gone. My heart thundered in my chest. She was coming. Today. The Liu family would visit again, just like last time. She'd be wearing the same white coat, that same practice smile. I remembered every step, every word, every breath. I thought maybe this time, knowing what I knew, I could fix everything. But then she arrived, and the script shattered. Madame Liu smiled gently and offered the same question. "Janet, would you like to pick your little brother again?" I stepped forward exactly as I had before. Janet's eyes didn't meet mine. She turned to the boy standing beside me, Michael, the pale, quiet child who had died early in my past life, the one I had barely remembered, until now. "I want him," she said calmly. Madame Liu blinked. "Are you sure?" "The other boy, Jimmy, he's the same as last time." Janet's voice turned cold. "Last time, I chose wrong. I picked someone who stole Michael's life. This time, I'm making it right." She looked at me with nothing but ice in her gaze. "You're the reason he died. You took everything from him. In this life, you'll taste what he went through." I couldn't move. Janet took Michael's hand protectively. "He's my brother now." Behind me, a new voice spoke. "Do you want to go with them?" I turned. Madame Wang stood tall beside a sleek black Maybach. Her sharp gaze scanned me, then narrowed slightly. I shook my head. "No, the Wang family is fine." She raised a brow. "Then come." I followed. I didn't look back as the Liu family convoy vanished in a storm of dust. In my last life, I gave Janet everything. My trust, my body, my years, my loyalty. I endured every betrayal, every silence, every wound. I sacrificed my future to love her. And in the end, she whispered another man's name as if he were the one who mattered. But this life, I wasn't crawling back. The car door opened. The Wang family crest gleamed in silver against black. A new name, a new bloodline, a new beginning. I stepped in and whispered to myself, "This time, I'll live only for me." The Liu family left without a second glance. Janet didn't even look back once. The same girl who once clung to my arm in another life, promising we'd always stay together, now held onto Michael like I'd never existed. Dust filled the air as their convoy disappeared down the road. The black Maybach beside me opened with a hiss. I stepped in quietly. Madame Wang didn't say another word as I buckled my seatbelt. She leaned her head back, eyes closed, like she didn't even need to acknowledge me. It was fine. I wasn't here to be doted on. The silence inside the car stretched. I didn't dare fidget. When we reached the villa, Madame Wang stepped out without looking at me. I followed 3 steps behind. The Wang family estate was nothing like the Liu home. This place had no gold-plated gates or fake French windows. It was sharp stone, cold corridors, and servants who didn't smile. Madame Wang set her handbag down, glanced up the staircase, and said in a flat tone, "Clara, come meet your new younger brother." My breath caught. There, on the second-floor landing, stood a girl with the most unreal face I had ever seen. Her eyes were wide and unreadable, her expression blank. She didn't move, she didn't speak. Clara. In my previous life, Clara had been sent abroad not long after I was adopted by the Lius. I had only seen her again years later, on the cover of a business magazine. By then, she had become the feared CEO of the Wang Empire. The media called her the female king of hell. Her face had been ruined in a brutal incident, and her silence had become legend. but right now, she looked untouched by any of that. I smiled gently, bowed slightly, and said, "Hello, sister." Clara didn't respond. She leaned on the railing like I didn't exist. Her gaze slid past me, indifferent. "She doesn't like talking," Madame Wang said bluntly. Then she turned away, leaving me to the butler. As I walked through the house with the butler showing me each corner, I felt eyes. I turned once, and caught Clara watching from the upstairs hallway, expressionless. The moment our eyes met, she vanished again. The days that followed weren't easy. Madame Wang had laid out a schedule tighter than iron. I woke at 5, morning stretches, etiquette drills, business language, horseback riding, fencing, then studying economics till I could barely keep my eyes open. Not once did I hear Madame Wang offer praise. "You're not here to be spoiled," she said coldly. "You're part of the Wang family now, even if only by adoption, you'll be raised like one." The housemaid Zara, who sometimes helped me with bruises after horseback falls, whispered, "The young master next door, Michael, he doesn't have to go through all this, he's been watching cartoons all day." I didn't answer her, I just tightened the straps on my saddle and tried again. Every night I collapsed onto my bed with aching limbs, but I never asked to stop. Why? Because in this life, no one would call me weak again. No one would say I lived because someone else died. And if pain was the price of proving I was worth something, then I'd pay it, every single day. Clara stayed silent through it all. Sometimes I saw her at breakfast, sometimes in the hall. I always greeted her. "Good morning, sister." "Good night, sister." She never replied. But one day, I was late for breakfast. I rushed out in uniform, barely tying my shoelaces, and saw Clara already waiting by the car with her school bag. She usually left without waiting. I paused. She didn't speak, just opened the car door and got in. I smiled. The next day, I was early, and so was she. It happened again. And again. She still never responded when I spoke to her, but she waited, quietly, consistently. That was enough. Clara wasn't like Janet. She didn't shower affection on people easily. She didn't reach for your hand or promise you the world, but she noticed things. She remembered things. One morning, as we walked side by side toward the school entrance, she slowed her steps slightly, enough for me to catch up without looking rushed. Another day, she shifted in the car, just barely enough so I didn't feel like an outsider pushed to the edge of the seat. Tiny things, quiet things, but I saw them, and I never forgot. Meanwhile, I watched the difference between the two families unfold clearly. Michael, in the Liu family, was the golden boy. He went to school late, came home early, never lifted a book unless it was for show. Janet cheered for him at every small event like he was a prodigy. Once, at a school event, I overheard her saying, "Michael's health is delicate, he doesn't need to be pushed like those Wang kids." Those Wang kids. That's what she called me now. At first, those words hurt, but slowly, they started to feel like armor. Because what she meant as an insult, Madame Wang meant as a responsibility. The Wang family doesn't raise useless children, she once told me while correcting my table posture, and that includes you. I didn't say anything, but deep inside, something that had shattered long ago started to knit itself back together. This family didn't love loudly, but they taught me how to survive, and Clara. She never said the word brother. Minindom, but one rainy day, when I forgot my umbrella, she was already waiting by the school gate, holding one large enough for two. She didn't speak, just stood there and handed it to me. I took it and whispered, "Thank you, sister." She didn't reply, but I swear I saw her lips twitch, just once. In silence, a bond had started to grow. It wasn't like before. It wasn't Janet's love, loud, showy, and always conditional. This was something else, quiet, unspoken, strong. And for the first time in this second life, I wasn't alone. It had been nearly 2 months since the day I stepped out of the orphanage with the Wang family name behind mine. Since then, my days had been filled with blisters, bruises, and the sound of Clara's footsteps, quiet, distant, but always just within reach. But no matter how far I ran from the past, it always had a way of circling back. That day was unusually warm. Summer vacation had begun, and while the Liu family was busy planning overseas travel, I was in full gear, riding boots, fencing gloves, and a school bag heavy with assigned coursework. Zara helped me straighten my collar and said with sympathy, The young master next door doesn't even get out of bed before noon, but you're already on your third lesson of the day. I smiled faintly. It's fine. I want to learn. As I stepped out toward the riding grounds, something soft brushed against my leg. A snow-white kitten. I bent down and scooped it up. Where did you come from? I asked softly. Then came the voice I hadn't heard in weeks, sharp, familiar. Xiaoguai, don't run off like that. Michael's voice. I straightened slowly just as he appeared, his eyes widening when he saw me. Oh, wow, Jimmy? He said, surprised. I didn't expect to see you here. You're still in the neighborhood? Before I could answer, another voice joined his, high, sharp, and unmistakably hers. Michael, why are you taking so long? What are you? Janet froze mid-sentence, her eyes locked onto mine. For a moment, she looked caught between emotions. Then her face twisted into something cold. You followed me? She spat, stepping forward. What, you think waiting here like some sad dog will make me change my mind? Michael blinked, confused. Wait, what? You know each other? He's the one I told you about, Janet snapped, still staring at me like I was something rotting. The one who stole your life in our last one. Jimmy, you're seriously disgusting, still lurking around like a shadow. Michael looked even more confused. You never said he lived next door to us. I didn't answer. I simply bent and handed him the kitten. Janet's eyes darted to my riding gear, then narrowed. Don't tell me. You got adopted by the Wang family? I nodded. That's right. Michael's face paled. You're a Wang now? His voice trembled. You got into that family? Janet grabbed his arm tightly. Let's go. He's just trying to get sympathy again. As they turned, I heard Michael whisper, but isn't the Wang daughter that crazy mute girl, the one who got her face messed up in high school? I heard they keep her locked in the East Wing. Janet shushed him, but her lips curled. I stood frozen, my hand clenched around my fencing glove. For a second, I forgot where I was. Even now, even after everything. She looked at me with nothing but disgust. Behind me, the sound of horses faded into wind. The next day, I stayed later after my last lesson, waiting for the driver near the school gate. Clara hadn't shown up for the ride home. Her class let out earlier than mine, but she hadn't texted. A strange unease settled in my chest. Then it hit me. The alley behind the school. In my previous life, there had been rumors. Something terrible happened to a girl connected to the Wang family. Some said it was Clara. Some said the attackers were never caught. Some said she was never the same again. I didn't think, I ran. By the time I reached the alley, my lungs were burning. There she was. Clara, cornered against the wall, surrounded by 4 girls in flashy makeup and 2 older boys in loose uniforms. She doesn't talk? One girl sneered, grabbing Clara's chin. Bet she can't scream either. Go on, make some noise, freak, said another, or we'll make you. One of the boys held something silver in his hand, a blade. The moment it glinted, I move. I grabbed a metal rod from the ground and barreled forward. I called the cops, I shouted. Get away from her. They scattered like flies, unsure if I was bluffing. I didn't stop swinging. I hit arms, knees, backs, shouting louder than I ever had. The fear in my voice wasn't fake. I was terrified, but not for myself. I was terrified for her. The one girl with the knife lunged back and spat. Bastard, you'll regret this. The last punch landed hard in my side. I staggered, trying to shield Clara behind me. And that's when the one called Maria, tall, with dyed red hair, kicked me straight in the ribs. I dropped. You think we're scared of a Wang mutt and her dog? She snapped, kicking me again. From the corner of my eye, I saw Clara's frozen stare, wide, terrified, trembling. I smiled, blood in my mouth. Don't be scared, sister. Then came the rage. Clara lunged, not away, but forward. She bit the girl's hand so hard that Maria screamed. Chaos exploded. They yanked her back, fists flew. Clara hit the ground hard. Someone raised the iron rod. I pushed myself between them. Everything blurred. Then, footsteps. Someone had arrived. I heard a familiar voice, far away. Janet, hurry, that cake place closes soon. Silence. Janet? I forced my eyes open. Light. 2 silhouettes. Michael and Janet. They stood at the alley entrance, watching. Michael saw the scene and gasped. Sis, someone's getting hurt. He started to move. Janet grabbed his arm. Don't look, she whispered. It's dirty. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. But my heart broke again, in the same exact place it had before. She didn't come here to help. She came here to watch, to see if I would suffer the same way Michael once had. But I wasn't him. And Clara wasn't going to end up disfigured, not in this life. As the attackers closed in, I pulled one down with the last of my strength. They kicked and shouted, but I refused to let go. Even if I died here, I wouldn't let her be hurt again. My breath gave out, the world tilted, and then, darkness. The hospital ceiling was white, too white, blinding, sterile, and silent. I woke up to the steady beep of a heart monitor and the ache of bandages wrapped tight across my ribs. My body throbbed with pain in places I hadn't even known could hurt. But I didn't make a sound. I turned my head and saw her. Clara. Her head rested on the edge of the bed, her arms crossed beneath her cheek, her dark hair falling over the pristine sheets. She was asleep, her chest rising and falling so lightly it almost didn't seem real. She was here. I blinked several times, trying to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. My last memory was of her covered in bruises, a bloodied cut across her cheek. My body had shielded hers until I collapsed. I remembered pain, then black. Now she was beside me, asleep. And for the first time since my rebirth, my throat tightened with something unfamiliar. Warmth. Maybe the sound of the monitor changed because she stirred. Her peach blossom eyes opened and met mine. For a long, frozen second, she didn't blink, then slowly, trembling, her hand rose, reached for my forehead, and brushed her fingers gently over the thickest bandage. Does it hurt? She asked, her voice hoarse and dry from silence. I froze. Clara spoke. Not just to anyone, she spoke to me. Even Madame Wang, who entered the room at that exact moment, stopped dead in her tracks. Ali, did you just speak? Clara didn't respond, she simply looked at me, as if her voice belonged only to this moment, and only to me. The rest of the day passed in a quiet haze. Madame Wang tried to talk to Clara again, but she wouldn't say a word. Zara brought in food and whispered, she hasn't left this hospital even once. When the nurse came to wheel Clara away for a checkup, she hesitated, her hand lingering near mine. Before leaving, she reached out, awkward, unsure, and patted my head. Get well soon, brother. The room was silent after she left. But my chest felt full. I wasn't used to it. That word, brother, had been spoken by others before. By Janet, with ease, like a performance. By Michael, casually, like a joke. But when Clara said it, she meant it. And maybe that's why I felt something break inside me that I hadn't even realized was still holding on. But the moment didn't last. The next day, the news broke. Michael had been arrested. Corporate espionage, theft, attempted murder. The Liu family's prodigal son, the one Janet had guarded like gold, had betrayed them from the inside. Even I hadn't expected it to go so far. He'd handed confidential Liu documents to a rival in revenge, and when confronted, he'd stabbed Janet while trying to attack her mother. Now Janet was in the ICU, alive, but unconscious. And yet, when Zara hesitantly told me, I didn't feel what I expected. Not pity, not satisfaction, just silence. Like all the weight I'd carried, what if it was all for nothing? Was this fate? Was I cursed? Had everything just switched places? Had I replaced Michael? Or had I simply become him? That question lingered like poison. Even after I left the hospital and returned to my routine, my books, my fencing drills, my test scores, the doubt wouldn't leave me. I'd escaped death in the alley, but inside, I still felt like I was drowning. Every night, when the house was quiet and the lights were out, I'd stare at the ceiling and ask myself, what if I'm not meant to be here either? Even Madame Wang noticed my sudden silence. She didn't say anything, but the lessons got harder, longer. You asked to learn, she said once, during a particularly difficult business case study. So learn, the world isn't kind to orphans, no matter how many lives they live. Her words cut, but I swallowed them, because she wasn't wrong. So I buried myself deeper, deeper into late-night reading, deeper into mock debate. deeper into anything that would silence the voice in my head telling me I'd been chosen by mistake. Clara noticed. I knew she did. Some mornings, I'd find warm honey water on my desk. She never said she left it, but it was always there. Other times, I'd wake up with an extra blanket draped over me after falling asleep in the study. And then there were her eyes. They always found me in the crowd. Even when she didn't speak, they said everything. I'm watching you, I see you trying, I see you breaking. And I'm still here. That was how she spoke, in silences. But Michael's poison hadn't left completely. Because one day, when I was walking out of the Wang Group training building, I found a folded note on my locker. You're not one of them, no matter how hard you pretend, you're still the thief, and eventually, Clara will see it too. No name, no signature, just ink and rot. I crushed the note and threw it away, but the words clung. Still, that night, Clara waited for me outside the training hall. She didn't speak, just walked beside me under the lamplight, and before I could unlock the car, she handed me a folded napkin. Inside was a badly made egg tart, probably handmade, probably messy, and yet, it made me laugh. I looked at her, she looked away, but her cheeks were pink. In her own way, she was fighting back against the darkness, fighting for me. That night, as I ate the tart alone, I realized something. I could doubt myself. I could fall apart, but I couldn't doubt her. Because unlike everyone else, Clara never needed me to beg for a place beside her. She gave it to me without asking for anything back. This bond wasn't like before, wasn't like Janet's loud declarations or Michael's fake grins. It was silent, unshakable, real, and because of that, I decided, even if I doubted myself, I'd never let Clara doubt me, not again, not in this life. After I returned to school, things changed, but not just for me. Clara's presence had started turning heads. She didn't talk to anyone, but she didn't need to. Her name alone made people stop whispering the moment she passed by. The girl they used to mock as mute, creepy, or freakish, now walked the halls with her chin slightly lifted and her bruises healed, both outside and inside. And if anyone doubted her place, they didn't after the racetrack. It happened a month after the hospital incident. One of our friends had suggested a casual post-exam hangout. Nothing special, just burgers, arcade, and a few laps at the local racing club. I didn't expect Clara to say yes when I asked her to come along. But she did. She even wore a casual ponytail and a denim jacket over her usual neutral blouse. That alone made a few jaws drop. The others had already gathered, loud voices, laughter, everyone ready to forget the stress of school for a while. We didn't expect the Liu siblings to show up. But Janet always knew when and where to make an entrance. She arrived in a deep crimson leather jacket, wind catching her styled hair as she stepped out of her car. Michael was at her side, all smug grins and loud shoes. It had been months since I'd seen them this close. Janet's eyes immediately scanned the crowd and froze when they landed on me, and then on Clara, standing beside me. Her expression faltered for a split second, then reassembled like glass falling back into shape. "Jimmy," she said smoothly. "What a surprise, didn't think this place was your scene." I didn't respond. Michael grinned. "Still playing the Wang family's mascot?" He looked at Clara. "And you brought your sister. She's not mute anymore, right? Bet she still can't drive." He laughed, loud and exaggerated, expecting others to join. They didn't. Janet folded her arms. "Let's make it interesting. How about a little raw? Capo." Clara didn't even blink. Michael scoffed. "Oh, come on, don't tell me she's going to get behind the wheel." "She'll drive," I said. Clara turned to me in the same moment, but I didn't flinch. I just looked at her and asked, "You want to?" For a heartbeat, everything was still. Then Clara nodded once and walked toward the track. Janet laughed out loud. "Wow, what changed? Did the Wang girl suddenly grow a spine?" "No," I said. "She was always like this. You just never noticed." The countdown started. Clara sat in the black vehicle like she'd done it 1,000 times. Janet revved the engine of her red sports car, flashy as always. The gun went off, and Clara vanished. At the first curve, Janet led. Second lap, neck and neck. Third turn, Clara slid into the corner so smooth, the crowd actually gasped. The entire moment looked like a scene lifted from a championship montage. Then she pulled ahead, not by accident, by skill. At the finish line, there was silence. Someone whispered, "That drift, it's just like God V from last year's International Youth Cup." Another voice replied, "Didn't that champion always keep their face hidden, could it?" Clara got out of the car calmly, walked to me, and said, "Brother, let's go home." Just like that. Janet was still sitting behind her steering wheel when we left. Michael tried to laugh it off. She must have cheated. No way that silent freak could drive like that. But no one laughed with him this time. Later, news would quietly spread. Someone had seen Clara at the underground youth tournaments when she was 11. She'd been a prodigy once, before the attack, before the silence, before the world forgot her name. Now they remembered. That day marked the shift. The whispers about Clara turned to awe. And me. People began to say I wasn't just the adopted one, I was her brother. I was the one who pulled her back from silence. I was the one beside her when she returned. But the reversal didn't stop there. Within the next few weeks, rumors surfaced at school about cheating during the midterms. At first, no names were mentioned. Then came whispers about Michael. A teacher caught him glancing at someone else's paper. Another saw him using a hidden earpiece. When the school board launched an internal investigation, Janet tried to smooth things over, bringing gifts, pulling strings. It didn't work. Michael's results were annulled, his scholarship status revoked. The golden boy cracked. The Liu family's pride began to tremble. Meanwhile, my name, Jimmy Wang, climbed up the honor board. Next to it, Clara stood firm in the top 3. We didn't gloat, we didn't need to. The silence that used to crush me was now our crown. And for the first time in either life, we were the ones being watched, not with pity, not with judgment, but with awe. By the time I turned 23, no one in the business world called me the Wang family's adopted son anymore. They called me by a different name, Jimmy Wang, CEO of Orange Cat Group. What started as a small research offshoot under Wang Corporation had, within 4 years, become one of the fastest-growing tech innovation firms on the Eastern Seaboard. I'd handpicked every member of my team, trained them, worked shoulder to shoulder until the company's vision wasn't just mine, it was a shared pulse. The media called me a dark horse, the stock market called me dangerous. The people who used to whisper behind my back now lowered their voices when I entered the room, but I didn't walk alone. Clara had returned to China 2 years ago, right after completing her international program early. She stepped into Wang Corporation as the official heir. The day she entered headquarters, the executives thought there'd be a power struggle between us, between the quiet sister raised behind closed doors and the adopted outsider who'd built a tech empire from scratch. They were wrong. We didn't clash, we aligned. I backed Clara. Publicly, privately, completely, and she did the same. Wang Group and Orange Cat became corporate allies, 2 entities bound not just by bloodlines or contracts, but by something deeper. Trust, loyalty, choice. And that scared people more than anything else. Because people like Janet and Michael had built their worlds on manipulation, guilt, and image. They didn't understand what it meant to choose someone without an agenda. Michael had been spiraling for some time now. After his academic scandal, he was sent abroad for a quick fix degree and a rebrand. Janet tried to pull favors. But the moment she started losing face, the same society that once praised her for being the Liu family's darling began to step away. Still, she returned to China with a new PR strategy, pushing Michael into Liu Corporation's boardroom like nothing had changed. But cracks don't heal when you cover them with gold paint. They rot. And eventually, they break. The Liu Corporation, once considered one of the most stable investment holdings, began shedding assets like leaves in winter. Behind the scenes, Michael had been leaking internal documents to rival firms, selling them off bit by bit to pad losses. Until he got caught. Clara was the one who broke the news to me. She slid the folder across my desk without a word. I flipped through the pages. Michael. Signed contracts, fake consultants, embezzlement, fraud. And at the center of it all, a bleeding Liu Corporation. I leaned back in my chair. Do we crush them? Clara didn't blink. We don't have to. Because Michael was already doing it himself. The day the Liu board removed him by force, he went straight to Janet's apartment. He begged, screamed, said he did it for her, for their family. She didn't even let him through the gate, and when he tried to threaten her with exposure, she turned him in herself. Michael was sentenced to 15 years. But Janet didn't attend the hearing, because she was standing outside my company's headquarters. Waiting. She'd been waiting 3 hours. When I finally stepped outside, she straightened quickly. Her clothes were still designer, but dated. Last season's trends stretched too tightly. Her hair was tied back, eyes red, but makeup perfect. "Jimmy," she said, her voice soft. "I just wanted a few minutes." I didn't answer. She took a step forward. We've known each other a long time." 2 lives, I corrected. "But who's counting?" She flinched. "Listen," she tried again. "I was young and stupid. I didn't understand what I was throwing away. But now, you regret it?" I asked. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Her eyes welled. "I do. I didn't know what I had. I thought Michael was. I thought he was meant to be saved." "You chose another path," I said calmly, pulling on my coat. "I know," she said quickly. "But maybe we could start again, as friends. Or, maybe more." She reached out. I stepped back. "No." Her face fell. I looked her in the eye. "I'm not angry anymore, Janet. I don't even hate you. But I will never forget. The day you looked at me like I was a curse. The way you watched me bleed and walked away. That wasn't a moment, that was who you were." "I've changed," she whispered. "So have I." I turned to leave. But she ran in front of me. "Then give me a chance, please, just—" "You had a choice," I said. "In both lives. And you made the same one twice." Her mouth opened, then closed. No sound came. "Goodbye, Janet." I walked past her. Inside, Clara was waiting by the elevator. She didn't ask anything, just handed me a thermos of warm tea. "Thanks," I said. She shrugged, then added quietly, "I saw her standing out there." I nodded. "She won't be back." Clara didn't smile, but she leaned against the wall, close enough that her shoulder brushed mine. "Let's go," she said. We stepped into the elevator together. Weeks later, when Orange Cat Group hosted its largest annual tech summit, Janet showed up again. Not as a guest, as a last-minute bidder for a failing project. Her company, Liu Holdings, had lost 2/3 of its assets. And now she needed help. She didn't make eye contact with me when she stood before the panel. I didn't say a word. After the event ended, she tried once more, approaching Clara in private. Clara listened politely, then said, "He doesn't need to hear from you again, he doesn't owe you forgiveness." And just like that, it was over. Years ago, I would have given anything to hear Janet say, "I'm sorry." Now, I barely remembered what her voice used to sound like. Because when someone chooses to walk away while you're bleeding, they don't get to return when you've healed. And the person who helped me heal? She wasn't loud, she wasn't charming, she didn't call me brother with fake affection. She just stayed, silently, steadily, through every storm. The girl everyone once mocked, the silent one, the messed up one, stood beside me now as the Wang Group heiress, feared, respected, admired. And me? I didn't need revenge anymore, because I had something better, victory and peace. The grand ballroom of the Imperial Crown Hotel shimmered with crystal chandeliers and soft golden lighting. Dignitaries, investors, political figures, and media icons had gathered to celebrate Orange Cat Group's international listing. At the center of it all stood me, Jimmy Wang. Not the orphan boy rejected by the Liu family, not the burden carried by the Wang name, but the founder, the visionary, the man who carved his future out of fire and silence. As the speeches wrapped up and champagne flowed, I stood on the marble stage, delivering a brief thank you, measured, calm, humble. I didn't need grandeur, my presence said enough. From the crowd, applause burst like thunder. People smiled, leaned in, lifted glasses. Everyone wanted a photo, a quote, a connection. Everyone, except her. Janet. She stood near the far edge of the hall, half hidden behind the floral arrangements. Her dress was elegant but outdated, her heels scuffed. The signature diamond earrings she always wore had been replaced with imitation pearls. She wasn't on the guest list. She came as a +1 of a fading executive from a second-tier firm, desperate to stay afloat. I saw her long before she approached me. Clara did too. She stood at my side, silent as always. Her sleek black evening gown made her presence magnetic even without a word. She had always known how to command space without noise. When Janet finally walked toward us, her steps were hesitant, as if each one scraped against a different year of regret. "Jimmy," she said. I turned slowly. "Miss Lou." She flinched at the coldness in my tone. Her hands trembled, clasped in front of her. "Congratulations, the whole world's talking about Orange Cat. You've really become everything they said you would." I didn't answer. She swallowed. "I just wanted to say I'm happy for you." I nodded once. "Thank you." She took a shaky breath. "And I'm sorry." I looked at her. "For what?" She blinked rapidly. "For everything. For the orphanage. For Michael. For the alley. For—" her voice cracked. "For not seeing you until it was too late." I stared at her for a long moment. Then I said, "I never wanted revenge, Janet, not really." She looked up, startled. "I only wanted a path without you," I said quietly. "And you chose the same." The words landed like glass, quiet, cold, and final. Janet's eyes widened, shimmering with tears. Her lips parted to speak, but no sound came. She stood there, trembling, trying to hold on to something that no longer existed. Then her shoulders sagged. She stepped back, eyes empty, the strength draining from her body like water spilling through cracks. As she turned and walked away, alone, unnoticed, unmissed. I didn't follow her. Because I didn't need to. That version of me, the one who waited for her, bled for her, broke for her, died long ago. Now, all that remained was peace. And beside me stood Clara. She didn't ask what Janet said. She didn't need to. She simply handed me a cup of warm honey water. No words, just the warmth of her fingers brushing mine. I took it and smiled faintly. The banquet resumed behind us, a sea of laughter and polished shoes, but we stepped out onto the balcony, away from the noise. The night air was cool, the city lights stretched far into the horizon, blinking like stars that belonged only to us. I stood beside Clara in silence. Then gently, I leaned my forehead against her shoulder. She stiffened, just for a second, then relaxed, tilting her head slightly against mine. "Clara," I whispered. "This life, it's truly been good." She didn't reply, but I felt her nod, and that was enough. In my first life, I chased love that punished me, family that abandoned me, and approval that came too late. In this one, I found loyalty in silence, love in actions, and family in someone who never asked me to prove I belonged. That was the difference. That was the reward, not revenge, not success, but peace. And the soft warmth of honey water between two hands that never let go.